A good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the final round of the AROC Racing League's Formula Alpha Championship for the second half of 2024. For one last time, here's my chance to call on these Tartus FAO1 cars in the 2024 season. What a season it has been as well. Some fantastic racing going on throughout the year. Changes in cars as well. And we look forward, of course, to the 2025 season coming up in a few weeks. But for now, it's time to say goodbye to our 2024 running here at Yas Marina. A bit of a, at this point, historic sort of venue to finish a season. It's a new venue, of course. 2009 saw this track really come into use in the motorsport world. But since then, it has played host to many a historic racing events, some that need not mentioning, some that genuinely do make for some fantastic racing action. And hopefully we're going to make some of our own here this evening. 5 cars on the grid for tonight's final race of the season, this session being led by the first of those being Alan Matthews, a 155.6 sees him currently on provisional pole. Steve Knight at the moment are on board with him, 2-minute.6. We'll be hoping to try and push up towards the likes of Paul Millman, Will Inglis, Guy Swarbrick as well. Good showing so far though for Guy Swarbrick in this session, just a few tenths off Alan Matthews, and he's currently in a little bit of no man's land out there on track, maybe having a bit of company though in the form of Will Inglis. Will Inglis, a latecomer to this session, 157.3, his best effort so far, but we'd expect a slight improvement for him towards the end of the running in this final qualifying session of the year. One last chance then for our drivers to push these cars to their max, find what they are made of, and to see what times they can get on the board. This car, of course, powered by that 1.4 multi-air engine that has seen used in a great many Alphas in the modern era, and has certainly proven its worth in our racing so far this season. This track is certainly going to push it more than perhaps some others. It's a long back straight here at Yas Marina, that run down from turn, well, really from, I was about to call it turn 4 there, but it's actually a lot sooner in the lap really than what we used to. It's turn 5, sorry, not turn 4. Turn 5, I'll just have to have a brief look at my notes there. I think I'd know this track by now. It's been so long since I've been commentating on it, so long since I've been watching motorsport happen here that I'd know. But obviously it is the run from turn 4 down to turn 5. No, it's not. It's turn 5 down to turn 6. Come on, Reeve, get your head in the game. That massive 1 kilometre, I think it's above 1 kilometre long straight. I have to say I was fortunate enough to actually drive around this circuit a few years back. It was in a Mercedes car, a road car, so no Formula 1 machinery for me just yet, and even that, I must say, was pretty special. It was pretty intense going really. The speed you can get even in a road car were absolutely immense. So probably in fact exceeding what we can get from these FAO1, these FAO4, the Tarsus that we're in this evening. So 20 seconds left on the clock. Alan Matthews leading the session at the moment. He's had no real challenge up until now, but what can a few of our drivers do just yet? Coming across the line first, it will be Steve Knight, just heading through the final sector now. Run up to turn 16. Turn 16, that tricky final corner on this lap, which really does catch a few drivers out. It looks like a relatively simple right-hander before you jump onto the onto the start-finish straight, but especially in a faster, larger car here, you're entering the track with you're entering that corner with quite a bit of speed. It forces you out wide, and that curve is not very kind to the car. It can spit you into a bit of oversteer, as we saw the likes of Max Verstappen, as of course they sealed their season here. It can catch a few drivers out. Max Verstappen having a big catch here. Up next, it will be Alan Matthews, so as he comes toward the end of the back straight. Before that, though, we are going to have Will Inglis actually retiring from the session, so that is all that Will can do, and gets very close to Paul Millman, but not quite close enough to usurp him. So that is Paul Millman then coming across the line in P3. Guy Swarbrick next across the line in the final couple of corners, heading through the penultimate now, turn 15, before he rides that curb about as much as you would dare that curb. Widely avoiding it is Guy there, because the inside curb also will spit the car out fairly aggressively. He crosses the line. It's a 156.229 coming home in second then for Guy Swarbrick, leaving just Alan Matthews to go in this session. And it is a good lap so far for Alan Matthews. Has had no real challenge in this session, it must be said, and that looks to continue it on as we have a 155.6 purple through that first sector. Second sector will be coming to an end rather soon. And that's an abandoned lap for Alan Matthews. It was looking really strong, but Alan decides nothing I need to do yet, really. I'm going to come home with pole position in this session. It will be an Alan Matthews and Guy Swarbrick front row for our first race of the evening. So get you in a few minutes as we get ready for the grid start for race 1 here, so don't go anywhere. Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, on the grid and ready for the start of race 1 for the last time this season. So let's make it a good one. Ignore that small warning message. I dared to use Assetto Corsa as an actual simulator at some point this week, so it's kicking off about me for having used it. There we go, slowly correct that. That's fine. Very professional as ever, just adjusting steering wheel in my commentary box. Completely normal thing to do. What a way to start the end of the season. Anyway, it is 6 red lights on the gantry. It's Alan Matthews and Guy Swarbrick on the front row. Let's see what happens as we head down to turn 1. And it's a great start, actually, for Guy Swarbrick and Paul Millman. Paul Millman getting a bit of a jump ahead of Willing Bliss there. Alan Matthews recovers, though, has that outside, can defend quite nicely. And there we go. He leads through into that first corner. You see Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri. That is how to start a race at Yas Marina. Meanwhile, it is going to be Guy Swarbrick there, who is holding off second place quite nicely at the moment because Willinglis having a couple of squirms at the start of the lap. Lost a bit of pace as a result. The back end not quite responding as he heads into the... Oh dear, that was a quite late dive into the corner, late on the brakes potentially. Guy Swarbrick must be feeling like a bit of a passenger in that one, really. He loses position, drops down to P5 then. It is going to be Paul Millman now in second place in this race with Willinglis for company. Not opting for the slipstream is Willinglis. He's going to try and hang the car around the outside and see who can go later on the brakes. If he can get that move done around the outside, that will open the corner up nicely for him as he runs through to the right-hander. There we go. Willinglis then up into second place. That puts Paul Millman in third. Guy Swarbrick in fourth. Under the lights, that livery, it must be said, does look absolutely fantastic. And then we have Steve Knight in fifth. Now, interestingly, we're going to have to talk about tyre chat already. It's time for some strategy discussion. Everyone on the medium tyres. In fact, only 3 out of 5 on the medium tyres because we've got Willinglis on the softs as well as Steve Knight also on those soft compound tyres. Now, that could work out. The medium tyre is going to have a bit of a grip deficit at the very start of the stint, and that soft tyre is going to be good to get lit up very quickly, get into a nice temperature window and take off and do quite well. However, they might be struggling later on. The Yas Marina is quite a high energy, high pace circuit, and what we could be seeing here is some potential issues with tyre life at the end of the race as the tyres begin to drop off, the drivers begin to scrub off a bit of grip, and they might be just trying to bring the car home. We'll see how it shapes up though, because not only has we got a slightly alternate tyre strategy going on, something rather unusual for Yas Marina. It is the middle of the night, of course. It is currently about 1 AM there, I want to say, about 4 hours ahead for Dubai, based on what time of year. Sorry, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, about that time of year. It's 4 or 5 hours ahead, based on where you are and what month you are in. So what we do, of course, in the AROC Racing Leagues, we base our weather off what is going on in real life at this moment in time. So whether it be rain or sunshine, whether it be a blistering 40-degree day or the cold depths of the night, we are running as to those conditions. It's not what conditions are like in the UK at the moment. It's whatever we are based on where the track is that we are visiting. Now, Yas Marina, it's currently, as I say, about 1 in the morning, midnight at least, and it's the middle of the desert, so all the temperature that builds up over the night over the day with the track being beaten down upon by the sun, the tarmac temperature is rising, all vanishes quite quickly in the desert. The desert does not hold temperature in the night, and there's very little to keep temperature in the tarmac here because we haven't got all the racing series, of course. We are just visiting in the sim. So that means that it's 15 degrees out in terms of ambient temperature, and it's 15 degrees tarmac temperature as well. So that tarmac is going to be nice and cold. And what that means, it doesn't offer all that much grip, but if you've got a softer tyre compound, it might fare a little bit better because it isn't being cooked so much by the natural state of the tarmac. It is only getting heat from what the drivers are doing in the cars. So the soft tyre might just work. We wouldn't expect the track to be quite as degrading as it usually is when we see it, usually in kind of mid to late evening sort in Formula running. Now we're going to head back onto that start-finish straight now with Willinglis not entirely breaking away from Paul Millman, and here is why. Paul Millman currently running very nicely indeed. Just goes purple through that first sector, 1:03 to bring an end to our second lap of this race so far. Very much keeping Willinglis in check, and it must be said as well, Guy Swarbrick also there in the mix, only 1 second down on Paul Millman himself. So we might not be wall-to-wall elbows out action so far in this race, but it is certainly shaping up that something interesting could be happening here, because one small error and you could find yourself jumping from P4 all the way up into P2 and maybe even higher still, because there is all 4 of our top 5. In fact, there is Steve Knight as well. There's our entire field for this race occupying the same camera shot as we see Guy Swarbrick going slightly wider, jumping outside of the traditional line there, deciding he doesn't want that slipstream. maybe just shaping up what his rivals are doing, heading into that heavy braking zone, heading into the corners, seeing if there's anything different that he can try. Small lock up there, but it recovers well from it. Slightly slow run through the corner for Paul Millman, losing a bit of momentum there. That could cost him in terms of his battle with Willing List, but certainly will help Guy Swarbrick's efforts in trying to catch up with him. Now, Alan Matthews, meanwhile, out in front, purple sector 1 on this occasion, is looking rather good. Is starting to break away slowly now from Willing List, because, as I was discussing just a moment ago, I think that medium compound tyre has now fully warmed up. It's now got into a more comfortable window. Isn't going to be too much of a deficit in terms of grip between the mediums and the softs. Certainly still a notable difference, but nothing major. And as I say, he's going to have that drop-off, but will later into the race potentially be looking quite good and quite strong. So it is going to be a tall order, I think, for those soft tyre runners to push on and make a decent difference to their race. Now, Guy Swarbrick having issues, unfortunately. Contact between Steve Knight and Guy Swarbrick. That brings an end, effectively, to Guy Swarbrick's race. And what a shame as well. It started well. He tumbles down to P5. Yes, now is a crucial moment for our soft tyre runners, really. We want to see them making inroads, making a big difference. Now, I think it's going to be pretty much now or never. Use that advantage, that soft tyre advantage early on while you've still got it, to try and take track positions. Let's see if they're able to do that. Alan Matthews, meanwhile, on the medium tyres, breaking away from the rest of the pack, running very nicely indeed with 2 purple sectors so far. Bad to worse for Guy Swarbrick, unfortunately. We know he had a couple of incidents that would not have helped the condition of the car, and I suspect as a result of that he has had to drop into the pits, maybe have a look at repairing that car, or is retiring from the session. Either way, a great shame there. It also looks like we've lost Steve Knight. No, we haven't, sorry. Steve Knight was having a slightly duff internet connection in qualifying, at least from what we could see from our timing. I think it was probably fine in the car, to be fair. And I saw the greyed out number of him. You think I'd be used to how the timing tower works at this point. But I, for a brief moment, was fearful that he wasn't in this session, but I can report he will remain on. And good to see Guy Swarbrick getting back out on track as well. Would be a good practice for the reverse grid race coming up at the end of race 1. A commanding lead so far then for Alan Matthews as we approach the final couple of minutes of this race session. He really has had no challenge. We go on board then with Guy Swarbrick as he heads back onto that start-finish straight. Steve Knight will be the nearest car in terms of results, but in terms of track, it is actually going to be Alan Matthews who is going to be closest to Guy Swarbrick. Just a couple of seconds separating those two out on track. Of course, Alan currently a lap up. We did see just a few moments ago a small, what looked like was about to be a battle between Will Inglis and Paul Millman there. Unfortunately, did not come to fruition with both drivers spinning out and continuing on as they were, really. And that robbed us of that battle there. Just a minute then left on the clock for this, the final, we'll call it, regular race of the season. Of course, we do have the reverse grid race to look forward to coming up next, which should be great in terms of actions. It throws a little bit of a spanner in the works for the leading drivers as they have to work their way up through the admittedly slightly smaller order through that reverse grid race. A bit of a four-wheel lock-up there actually for Guy Swarbrick, often tricky to recover from there, especially impressive to see him keeping it on the track despite that lock-up. Continues on then and will be coming home in P5. Let's have a quick reminder then of the championship after this season's running. Of course, didn't need to be here this evening. Matt Daly, a commanding championship victory there of 292 points. His nearest rival, Colin Keneath, having 179. Then it's Alan Matthews with 176 points to his name. So as it stands, and in fact, what will be the case is Alan Matthews will usurp Colin Keneath to take second in this championship. Certainly no mean feat there. A bit of oversteer creeping in for Guy Swarbrick. He does well to collect it though. As the timer does in fact hit zero, this is the penultimate lap of this race. So let's see as we get ready to head into our final lap then in just a moment's time. It's still yet to be lapped actually is Guy Swarbrick, so we'll be getting a bit more track time, but now we see Alan Matthews crossing the line there to start the final lap of this race. So with Alan Matthews then obviously taking second in the championship as well. Will Inglis will be extending his run in fourth at the moment, currently fourth, 37 points to his name. He'll be continuing on in that position. Then we have Jack Hodson. He'll remain in 100 with 129 points. He'll remain in P5. Paul Millman though, actually that will not be the case because Paul Millman will be jumping up and robbing Jack Hodson of fifth at the very end of the season. So that'll be an almighty effort if he is able to do that, and in fact will be able to do that, especially with the reverse grid race coming up next. Then we have Steve Knight, currently running in P7 with 104 points to his name, ahead of Guy Swarbrick with 54 points. Those two will consolidate their positions in the championship ahead of Alex Smith and Paul Brady, rounding out our 10 runners for this championship so far. Here is Alan Matthews then heading through turn 6 and turn 7 for one last time in race 1. Before he jumps back onto what is effectively the second back straight. It is certainly not a small distance down to turn 8 here at Yas Marina. It allows the cars to get up to immense speed once again. There's plenty of wide open throttle action here at the infamous man-made circuit on the marina. Paul Millman then heading through turn 7 and 8 himself in just a moment. Sorry, turn 9 coming up, actually towards the end of the back straight here. As if you don't count turn 8, which is really not a turn. In effect, it is full throttle. It's just a run onto a back straight in my eyes, although it is classified as a turn. That matters not, though, as Alan Matthews heads round the final corner for one last time here in race 1. A commanding victory is going to fall his way. A great way to show just what he could have done in this championship. He will jump into second position behind Matt Daly, but still best of the rest for Alan Matthews. A great run here in race 1. He gets it all to do again in race 2 coming up in a few moments' time. Paul Millman then, also a fantastic drive, coming home on those medium tyres, the soft tyres. Probably not the tyre of choice here for Yas Marina. Our top 3 then, sorry, our 1 and 2 running on the mediums. Then we got P4. In fact, no, P5, sorry, in the medium as well with Guy Swarbrick there. But Paul Millman then will be coming home to add another podium to his roster there. A great drive for Paul Millman, comes home with P2 in the end. And then rounding out the podium, it will actually be a soft tyre runner, so who knows, maybe it can work out. Certainly Willingless has done his best. Let's see then, as Willingless rounds that final corner for one last time, nursing those soft tyres home and coming home with a podium for his trouble. So making up a few positions there. A good way to end the race for Willingless, rounding out that podium as well. Then we've got a small wait for Steve Knight to come across the line here. Has a bit of front end damage by the looks of things, so he's done well to bring that car home after has been a slightly tricky race with probably quite a drop in front downforce. So some of these corners will have been not entirely forgiving really with the state of his car at the moment. Let's see as he rounds that penultimate corner. Just one more slight braking zone to think about. Want to avoid those curbs, back onto the start-finish straight, onto that throttle to bring the car home for the end of race one. And by the looks of things, we got Matt Daly as well for the reverse grid, so that is good to see, as we have Steve Knight coming home there in P4, and then the small wait for Guy Swarbrick, who'll be coming home in P5 to round out our 5-car field for race one. We'll join you in a few minutes then for our reverse grid race here at Yas Marina. Here we are then on the grid for our final race start of the AROC Racing League's Formula Alpha Championship for 2024. Let's make it a good one then. It is Guy Swarbrick, Steve Knight on that front row. Then we've got Willingless, Paul Milner on the second, and then we've got Alan Matthews and Matt Daly rounding out our 6-car field for the reverse grid race. Then the revs begin to rise, begin to bounce off the rev limiter for one last start. It's 6 red lights on the gantry. And we are away for race 2 here at Yas Marina. It is a decent start there for Willie Gliss, who carves his way up towards P2 already. Later on the brakes, and he dives into that P2, but so does Alan Matthews. He can actually run out a little bit wide there. Took so much speed into the corner. It nearly worked, though. Guy Swarbrick, meanwhile, still holding on to the lead, but certainly feeling that pressure now from Willie Gliss. Meanwhile, further in the background there is Matt Daly, there is Paul Millman, and Steve Knight, all having a bit of a near coming together, but enjoying it nonetheless. I am sure that run now into the 4th corner on track, a little bit of a wider exit for Guy Swarbrick. That is going to cost him and allow Willie Gliss to take the race lead at the start of the race here on lap 1. This is perhaps what he wants to try and replicate in race 1. He's now been able to do that here in race 2 on the medium tyres as well. I should add, it hasn't gone for that early tyre advantage. Is going for a bit more longevity later into the race, which is probably the right call, as we have everyone on that medium tyre now. Heading into the final, well, I was about to say the final chicane in this track, but there's so many tight twists and turns here at Yas Marina, especially through the 3rd sector. As Steve Knight and Matt Daly have a bit of a coming together, they are still side by side as we run it on to the next back straight for that run down to the 9th corner on the circuit. That is going to be Guy Swarbrick and Matt Daly side by side. It's also going to be Guy Swarbrick and Alan Matthews side by side here as well, as we run through the long sweeping left-hander. An interesting corner here actually, where you've got so many options for so many lines to take in order to get through this corner in a quick fashion. So it actually makes for some great overtaking opportunities. This circuit had a few changes made to it a few seasons back, which really have improved racing here, it must be said. Guy Swarbrick having a tricky run into the corner there, under the brakes, loses out of it, drops a few positions, now feeling that pressure from Paul Millman. Meanwhile, Willie Gliss still leading this race from Alan Matthews, who has all of that experience from race 1 in how to lead here at Yas Marina, so it's certainly going to use that as a weapon against Willie Gliss as we head back onto that start-finish straight now. These two don't want to spend too much time squabbling, though, because Matt Daly is very much in the mix here as well. Nice move around the outside, though, for Alan Matthews. Can he keep that momentum up enough to warrant staying out ahead of Willie Gliss? I think he can just about get that move completed. It is now Alan Matthews in the lead of this race here at Yas Marina, and what a move it was through that first corner. Sweeping down the elevation changes then, before we have the relatively tight hairpin here. It's a tighter hairpin for Yas Marina. It's not the tightest in terms of hairpins all around the world, but there's some speed going into it, so that helps. As we head on to that back straight now, we're going to see Alan Matthews weaving about to try and break the toe, because it is an important toe here at Yas Marina, because there is such a huge amount of speed to try and build up along this long back straight. And of course, not all that much in terms of power here in these cars. So Willie Gliss using that slipstream to his advantage. Contact there between Alan Matthews and Willie Gliss, and I think Alan Matthews tries to be courteous and wait, tries to be a true gentleman about it, but unfortunately that isn't going to work out, because it's a bit of a pinch point there, and that is a disaster for Willie Gliss. Must have felt like a little bit of a passenger in that one. He does continue on, but it's all the way down in P6. What a shame for Willie Gliss. Guy Swarbrick then appears to have issues as well, was probably involved in all of those fairly substantial accidents, faces through the wall, so breaks the space-time continuum to tell you no, the car is not happy, and dives into the pits. What a shame to see Guy Swarbrick's race come to an end like that. Meanwhile, Paul Millman now finds himself in the lead of this race, but under pressure, though, from Alan Matthews and Matt Daly as we head through the final sector of the lap. Let's see how he negotiates this pressure, as we have had not an incident-free race start so far here in race 2, but would you expect anything less from a reverse grid race? I don't think you can you? There we can see it in the rearview mirror. Matt Daly trying his best to put that pressure on Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews, so far more focused on getting ahead of Paul Millman, goes side by side with Paul and is able to take the position before we head into turn 1, but actually loses a little bit, actually, as we're on the exit there, pushes out wide, loses a bit of momentum. Could that be damage on the car? He's certainly not going to have 100% health after that incident with Willie Gliss earlier on in the race, so might be struggling for a bit of balance in the car. Has got ahead of Paul Millman, and now builds up an air gap between Paul Millman and Matt Daly, but Matt Daly is quick to take the inside there and get ahead of Paul Millman. Up into P2 then for Matt Daly. Steve Knight running in P4 at the moment, and then we've got Willie Gliss running in P5. Guy Swarbrick unfortunately retiring from the session. Paul Millman's going to have a look, though, as we head towards the end of the back straight. We're going to be side by side. Who goes later on the brakes there? Fantastic move from Paul Millman. It almost looked like Matt Daly wasn't expecting it. It was just a great bit of momentum from Paul Millman. Had that extra speed, could use that to his advantage, judged the braking perfectly, and was able to get ahead. Lose speed, though, on the exit of the chicane, so this is going to be tricky for Paul, as we have Matt Daly taking a slight inside line there, running towards the 9th corner on the circuit, takes back the position. A fantastic battle brewing between the pink and blue livery car as well as the yellow livery car here. Echoing his every line is Paul Millman, trying to find a way past. Hasn't been able to find one just yet, so let's see if he can find another moment where he's able to catch Matt Daly out just a little bit, because he certainly was able to running into the chicane on the back straight. Just whether or not he'll find somewhere to do that in Sector 3. Very much a tale of two circuits, I think, is Jasper, and you've got those fast, sweeping, wide corners, followed by long back straights of Sector 1 and the brief Sector 2. But then you've got the tight, twisty, more Hilker-esque, sorry, Tilker-esque, not Hilker, Herman Tilker-esque Sector 3 of 90-degree bends, tight braking zones, and tricky to judge corner exits. It's a very much a corner with a track with very different characteristics based on where you are out on track. Paul Millman losing a little bit of time through that Sector 3, allowing Matt Daly to break free ever so slightly. Willingless, meanwhile, hunting down Steve Knight on a bit of a, not going to say a revenge charge, but a bit of retribution perhaps to try and make up for that unfortunate earlier race incident, as he tries to find a way past Steve Knight in just a moment. In terms of pace at the moment for Willingless, 158.2 on that previous lap of 159.2 for Steve Knight. Our fastest cars out on track at the moment, that will be Alan Matthews with all that experience leading the race at 157.3, 2 purple sectors, and then we've got Matt Daly with a 157.6, so 0.3 off, but it could be getting closer on this lap, or at least that would be the case that I usually expect, as we know Matt Daly has some great pace underneath him. However, Alan Matthews is on for a bit of a scorcher at the moment, it must be said. A 59.3 Sector 1, that is our first 59 or sub 1 minute Sector 1, possibly of the weekend, certainly of this race. Either way, he's up 1.2 seconds on his personal best. There you can see in your bottom left-hand corner of the screen, ladies and gentlemen, the predicted lap time for Alan Matthews. Sorry, it is on 155.9, make that 156 flat based on where we are in terms of the mini sectors. Meanwhile, Matt Daly is certainly looking to improve, but not by that margin, not quite that margin yet. Alan Matthews gelling well with this circuit, has his setup dialed in, has himself dialed in, has the experienced lead as well. It is looking to be a great weekend so far for Alan Matthews. Although gaining substantially through that final sector, it must be said, Matt Daly was absolutely on fire. Losing time through the final sector was Alan Matthews, but Matt Daly there, a brilliant run. Actually made a decent chunk of time. Now, 156.4 on that last lap for Matt Daly, a 155.8 though for Alan Matthews, so still strung together a very impressive lap time indeed. Certainly gaining with the slipstream effect coming into play here, as Matt Daly's 1.1 seconds behind Alan Matthews. We have actually just had confirmation of what went on for Guy Swarbrick's car there. It is a great shame, and I think it really does kind of sum up what the season has been like for Guy Swarbrick, which has been genuine flashes of pace and some real opportunities, but unfortunately just terrible luck really, and things not shaping up the way that he would want. Guy Swarbrick then having issues with his virtual reality headset, so we might not have mechanical failures in the world of sim racing, but we certainly do have our spanners in the works, so to speak. So Guy Swarbrick bowing out of this session because his virtual reality headset failed and he was not able to actually see the racing, so brought the car to a stop. And as I say, a terrible way to end, because he was looking in good shape after that potential incident and could have had a podium, certainly with the numbers on track this evening. And the experience gained from race 1. Should add, by the way, as I've just been prompted by Guy Swarbrick's announcements in the paddock there, as Matt Daly is closing in on Alan Matthews, and this could be why Alan Matthews potentially overdriving the car a little bit. Not that I'm here to judge driving, because there's a reason I'm not in the car myself. Matt Daly closing up substantially, then Alan Matthews losing a substantial amount of time on that previous lap rather, and now we're going to have a real battle for the lead of this race. 0.3 of a second separating these two as we head through the first sector. This is just going to spur Matt Daly on. That slipstream effect becomes even stronger now the closer they are, and this is going to be a real opportunity. There's still life left in the tyres. The fuel loads are lighter. We've got 15 minutes of racing to go. Front wing damage for Matt Daly, let's not forget, a mighty impressive feat. He's got this pace given the circumstances, and we jump onto that back straight once again to see how these two can build a battle. In the background, I should add, is Paul Millman doing a mighty job as well. A 58.2 in the last lap, still certainly keeping pace as Will Inglis in the background there also finds a way past Steve Knight to jump into 4th position. Who's going to go late on the brakes then? Matt Daly tries to dart towards the outside line there to try and get a move done. It's not going to work out for him though, as we head back onto the next part of the back straight there. Pushing deep into the corner is Alan Matthews. That could cost him time as Matt Daly gets closer and closer, although it was a slightly scruffy exit for Matt as well. These two really pushing the cars to the limits for this final race of the season. They go side by side. It's the outside for Matt Daly. Can he make that move stick? Yes, he can. A bit of a typical move for turn 9 here at Yas Marina, but with that extra momentum, it is going to be Alan Matthews taking the position back. A fantastic recovery there to grab back, to really wrestle back the lead of this race so far. Let's see if Matt Daly can. Oh, there's going to be contact between the two there. A very gentle touch of the cars. It really was only slight 6 kilometers an hour, but that was enough to upset the balance of the two cars. They do recover, but that could have been a lot worse, and it certainly would have been beneficial for the likes of Paul Millman. They carry on, though, onto the final corner of the lap. Still only half a second separating the two drivers. Now, we're on board with the two then, and obviously we know that Matt Daly is carrying damage on the front end, but it must be said as well, it seemed to be that Alan Matthews' car wasn't responding entirely traditionally to some of the inputs from the driver. So potentially some tyre issues going on there. The car looks fine in terms of its aerodynamics, potentially some issues for Alan Matthews as well. So if there's nothing wrong, Alan, you can have that racing driver excuse for free. You're welcome for that one. Going to head now to the hairpin before the back straight once again. Still only 0.3 of a second separating these two drivers. A tighter line for Matt Daly. Doesn't lose out on the exit of the corner compared to Alan Matthews, and this is looking even stronger now for the car in yellow as we go side by side. For the outside line, it goes Matt Daly. Defending from the inside is Alan Matthews. They are absolutely neck and neck now. Now we've got Matt Daly with a bit of a nose out in front, but all the work to do from the outside here. Nice defensive move there, nice defensive line from Alan Matthews. He pushes on into the second part of the back straight once again after that chicane, and for a second looked like he was actually going to approach the wall there. Was able to avoid it though, I am pleased to report, as we cross half race distance in this race now. Will Inglis being overtaken by Steve Knight once again, so good to see battles going on throughout the field here as we approach our final kind of 10 minutes of racing action for the 2024 season for both the Formula Alpha Championship and, of course, the touring car action as well. The back end stepping out on Alan Matthews' car there. That is very reminiscent of that clip of the 2014 Ferrari heading through that corner complex there, where you'd see the back end stepping out followed by catastrophic understeer. So good to see Alan Matthews negotiating that well. I'd say that looks like a slightly poorly car, to be honest. I don't think his tyres are entirely happy at this phase of the race. Certainly Matt Daly putting that pressure on and making Alan Matthews really fight for this victory, as we were threatened potentially to go side by side there. Just look at how unresponsive that car is, not wanting to do what the driver is asking of it. That is certainly not an easy car to drive. Oh, the back end on Matt Daly's car there. He dives across to try and find a way around the outside of Alan Matthews. The back end completely gives up on him. Where has the grip gone from this track? We did not see any of this in race 1. The conditions are still identical. The sessions have started. They'll be the same now. But that is disaster for Matt Daly. That rather relieves the pressure from Alan Matthews here and allows Paul Millman back up into second position. It could be another second place on the cards here for Paul Millman. What a drive that would be as we approach the final 10 minutes of this race now. Steve Knight, meanwhile, feeding that pressure from Will Inglis. Inglis with a great run onto the back straight now, has the advantage of momentum. As we can see, everyone's still very close together, it must be said. All 5 cars pretty much occupying the same camera shot, as we have Will Inglis going for that inside line there, taking P4 in this race. I should add, just in case we haven't had enough AROC Racing Leagues action, we will be having our traditional winter series as well. Now, this usually isn't typically streamed as regimented as the main seasons are, but I will obviously try to get at least a couple in there if possible. But I will also be participating in those seasons as well. So this is a warning mainly for a few ARL participants, fellow racing colleagues here who usually only have to suffer me after they've had the racing weekend fun. This time you're going to have to deal with me out on track as well, because we'll be doing our traditional Tasman series this time out with some lovely 156s. We'll be visiting some famous historic New Zealand racing circuits. Gonna call it Pukekohe Racing. Oh, sorry, Pukekohe Park. Pukekohe? There we go. We'll go with that for our first round on Friday evening. So that should be a fun one to participate in. Certainly looking forward to it. Apologies to everyone else in advance as we head back onto that back straight now. I think I've just reminded myself that I probably need to actually click the sign-up link for that one. So sorry, guy. I'll do that soon. Either way, Matt Daly is only 1 second behind Paul Millman, has really closed this gap up now. As we can see, Paul Millman wasn't quite able to get back towards Alan Matthews. Instead is going to be focusing on trying to keep hold of that P2. I'm trying to have a look at Matt Daly's car. Yeah, there we can see it. So I wasn't quite sure if Matt Daly's car was looking fine in terms of damage. We know it had a bit of front end, but also look at that rear wing on the yellow liveried car there. It is certainly at an unideal, less than ideal angle, really. It is not conducive to maximum downforce when your wings is slightly hanging off. So that is probably going to explain quite a lot of the handling characteristics of Matt Daly's car there. Combine it with the front wing as well, that is also not happy. We can see why Matt might have not quite had the pace to challenge Alan Matthews in this one, or just why that car was so unforgiving to him just a couple of laps ago when it spat him out on the high-speed right-hander. Either way, getting very close now to Paul Millman as we head towards the end of Sector 3. Chasing Paul Millman, very much keeping in the tow. And rounding that final corner, having a look around the inside. That's not all that traditional. We don't usually see an overtaking move attempted there, and that is why the corner pinches back, narrows ever so slightly, and there just really isn't room there. So all Paul Millman had to do was just hang it around the outside and make sure that Matt wasn't able to try and find a way through. Now, here's where it all went wrong for Matt Daly a little while back. He's going to be perhaps a little bit more conservative, running through the long, sweeping downhill right-hander where it's a bit off camber. It really pressures the back axle of the car. Has gained momentum, though, on Paul Millman. Is going to go side by side. Has that inside as well. You just have to be careful that you don't go too deep on exit for the left-handed hairpin here, and nicely negotiated, gets the move done actually before the mid-phase of the corner. So we head onto the back straight once again, and he is ahead of Paul Millman is Matt Daly, certainly diving across the circuit though to try and break that toe. They are weaving across the circuit, almost as we've got victory celebrations there, and that is certainly not that traditional. You usually see that much weaving, and that is why there's Paul Millman with a great run in to the left-hander there, takes a position back. Some great straight line speed, I think, in that car for Paul Millman. That is why he's able to take the position back. Matt Daly as well, less than happy car. This is making for a great race between these two drivers now, as they go side by side once again. They are going to be coming home in tandem, but instead of coming home, it's coming home to turn 9 rather, as he jumps out in front late on the brakes, hanging it round the outside and back into P2 for Matt Daly. Riding over the curbs is Paul Millman. Doesn't want to do that too much, as we know curbs are slightly unforgiving here at Yas Marina, and this car isn't the biggest fan of curbs. It's quite light, short wheelbase and narrow tyres. Obviously very low to the ground, as you'd expect of a Formula car. These curbs will spit you off if you dare glance at them too harshly. But Matt Daly seems to have secured this P2 for the time being, although I suspect on the straight, Paul Millman might be able to claw something back. Steve Knight gets back ahead of Will Inglis once again. I think Will Inglis has just had another issue out on track. That looks to be the case. What a shame this has been for him. A great start to the race, an unfortunate early race incident, and now he's struggling in P5 at the moment. Really an opposite to what I was expecting to see in race one. Obviously, he was running on the soft tyre, and I thought you're going to struggle on that soft late on into the race. But it's been the mediums that he's been struggling on. Perhaps not due to the tyres at all, really, but still, certainly not the way he wanted this race to go, I am sure. That medium tyre then really eliminating any chances of it becoming a tyre preservation festival. As we see Paul Millman running in third at the moment, because, as I say, yeah, the medium tyres should be absolutely fine to bring the cars home on. Speaking of bringing it home, let's have a look at who's bringing home that championship once again. We know it's Matt Daly, 292 points to his name, but Alan Matthews expands that lead. In fact, overtakes Colin for P2 in this championship, 201 points to his name. It is then Colin with 179, followed by Will Inglis with 152, and if things had really gone his way, it could have been Will Inglis in P3. Unfortunately, didn't quite work out. Then we've also got Paul Millman in P5 with 135, Jack Hodson P6, Steve Knight P7, 116, and then we have Guy Swarbrick with 64 points to his name, followed by Alex Smith and Paul Brady, rounding out our championship standings for this evening. I don't expect, in fact, there won't be any changes from that, so that is your final championship order for 2024, the Formula Alpha Series as well. And of course, not only do we look forward to the Tasman Series starting in just a couple of days, we also look forward to 2025, when we will be continuing on with our touring car and Formula Alpha format. Some fantastic raceable cars here, so if you haven't already, do get signed up and get involved. It'd be great to have you on board for some fantastic racing action. It's a very friendly atmosphere to do it in as well. I should also give my congratulations to David Chelly, newcomer to the season, the newcomer to AROC Racing Leagues this season, and has absolutely, not going to say ran away with it, but was absolutely impressed with a fantastic rookie season, taking the championship there. So congratulations, David, as well. I believe I already called that a race go, or the last time I was able to commentate on the touring car action, but still great to see him able to bring home that trophy. So just a few minutes to go then, and our final few minutes of racing action here at Yas Marina, our final few minutes of racing action in the Formula Alpha Series as well. Alan Matthews, we haven't looked at for a little while, is currently leading this race, much like race one, although certainly has been a little bit more tricky than race one here in the reverse grid race. And there we see Steve Knight and Will Inglis battling once again onto that back straight. It is Will Inglis into the lead of these two once again. Steve Knight, though, certainly keeping him company as we run down towards the chicane in just a moment. Steve having a look into the inside there, but earlier on the brakes, it allows Will Inglis to cover off the corner and continue on in P4. 2 minutes to go on this clock as we have Alan Matthews leading by 9 seconds from Matt Daly. Matt Daly was able to get back ahead of Paul Millman a few moments ago, and Matt Daly is on a charge late on in this race, half a second a lap faster than Alan Matthews at the moment, but unfortunately it's just not going to be enough at this late phase of the race. We do now start our penultimate lap of this race. Next time that Alan Matthews sees the start-finish line, it will be to start the final lap of the race for one last time this season. As I say, 9 seconds covering him, separating him and Matt Daly. Really pushing on nicely is Matt Daly, 6/10 up on his personal best, even on this lap at the moment. So he's already making headways even in just that first sector. Fortunately, not quite enough to be done, so it's going to be a nice cruise home for Alan Matthews at this phase.
The timer hits 0 then for one last time this season, as we have Alan Matthews heading round onto that start finish straight. The back end actually stepping out on his car. That has been a good lap for Matt Daly. He has closed up that gap. Still only 7.5 seconds, so it's not going to be quite enough. All Alan Matthews really needs to do now is just try and cruise that car home, although we are seeing tyres starting to give up. So I can't imagine those soft tyres had a good go of it. Really, it's something we didn't quite... Oh, apologies there. The streaming software wanting to give me one last potential worry late on in this season. Alan Matthews doesn't have many of those, though. He doesn't have any worries, really. That worry is about 7 seconds away, and it's bright yellow, and it will be in his rearview mirror. It's just not that close. Now, one small error could potentially mess things up for him, but as I say, if he just goes gently, brings that car home, he will take a double victory here at Yas Marina. What a way to round out the season for Alan Matthews as well. Riding over that curve there. He's done that quite a lot this race, and it's worked out for him, it must be said. I was expecting it to be a bit more unforgiving on the car, but it seems to be working quite well. Heads round the long sweeping left-hander at the bottom of the circuit and works his way back up into the tight and twisty Sector 3 for one last time. What a great drive it has been for Alan Matthews. No real competition in qualifying. In race 1, he was just able to break away, and I imagine was feeling a bit lonely out in front there. He hasn't had quite the same feeling here in race 2, though. He's had to work for it a little bit more, and Matt Daly, hats off to him, has done his absolute best to catch up and try and push on and find a way to get ahead of Alan Matthews. It didn't work out in the end, though, so what a way to finish this season it will be for Alan Matthews. A great drive at Yas Marina, really showing that he's got what it takes, and will come home second in the championship as well. But it's first in this race. Our final race victory of the year goes to Alan Matthews. A great drive as well. Matt Daly comes home in P2 as well. A fantastic drive. He wasn't here for race 1, so all this experience is something that's just built up here in race 2. So P2 is a remarkable feat when you think about it. A great drive for Matt as well, and of course a brilliant championship. 292 points to his name, clear by a considerable amount of points to Alan Matthews, his nearest rival in the championship in the end. We've then got Paul Millman adding another podium to his roster, then rounds out that podium with a P3. Winless will be coming home P4, and then in quick succession, everyone very close together. Indeed, it will be Steve Knight coming home in P5 in the end. Let's enjoy for one last time this season some victory donuts. They are very much in order. We go on board with Alan Matthews then, as we see him bringing this season to its close. Matt Daly as well always knows how to put on a good victory donut, does Matt Daly, so let's enjoy some of those. There we go. On the back straight, Yas Marina, the home of end-of-season donuts, is also the home of our end-of-season donuts. And aren't they looking pretty as well? Big thank you to Guy Sorber for all the effort he puts in getting the server up and running, as well as making sure we got the right mods and running, because look, we get some lovely graphics for it as well. But that is a fantastic bit of victory donut action there from Matt Daly, from Alan Matthews, from Steve Knight as well. Thank you very much for watching, not only this evening, but also this season. We round out 2024. I'm going to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Hopefully we'll get a couple of streams in before Christmas itself. Might do, actually, we'll see. But if not, very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. All of you watching along, thank you for watching along if you are watching along, and we'll see you in 2025 for some more AROC Racing League action. Thank you very much for watching, and good night.